Okay, great. We're going to Bidders Conference. Thank you for taking time today to join us. Over the next 3 hours, you will have an opportunity to participate and learn about Illinois Works and the pre-apprenticeship program NOFO we have recently put out. My name is Norman Ruano, and I'm the Deputy Director of the Office of Illinois Works at DCEO. Just a little bit of information about me. I have had the privilege of working in workforce development for almost 25 years now. I have run and overseen programs in 20 of those almost 25 years, and had an opportunity of working and serving many people in the state of Illinois through our workforce program. So it's a pleasure to be here today. We're going to have a lot of exciting information for you, and it's definitely a very informative webinar. My co-presenter today with me, Christine Flynn, Grant Manager with the Office of Illinois Works. Christine, if you could please say hi to our audience today.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm excited to be here with you.
Thanks again. Illinois Works has a team of passionate. The current team at DCEO and working in this program consists of myself as the Deputy Director, Christine, who you just met as a Grant Management Analyst. Then we also have Dan Martinez as a Grant Manager. Please say hi to our audience today, Dan. Unfortunately, we cannot hear Dan. Dr. Gia Suggs, from NIU, a consultant from NIU, as a training analyst and program coach. Gia, if you could please say hi to our audience today.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome.
And Dr. Vera Lee Robinson, also program coach from NIU. Vera, if you could please say hi to our audience today.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome.
Thanks again for joining us. We also have two other teams at the Office of Illinois Works, one that is responsible for the bid credit program and one that is responsible for the apprenticeship initiative. We will discuss those programs in a few minutes so that you understand how all these programs work together at the Office of Illinois Works. Illinois Works was created as a result of Governor Pritzker's historic $45 billion capital plan called Rebuild Illinois, and his commitment to expanding equity in the Illinois construction workforce. This exciting new initiative will create opportunities for Illinois businesses, communities, and families. During this course, you'll be provided with information, resources, and support to help you successfully respond to the Illinois Works NOFO and create a strong program proposal. The objectives for our webinar today are the following. By the end of this training, you'll be able to articulate the mission of DCEO, describe the relationship between DCEO and Illinois Works, describe the 3 key programs implemented as a result of the Illinois Works Jobs Program Act, describe the role of GATA in the NOFO process, access information that's available through the Illinois Works Pre-Apprenticeship NOFO website, successfully fill out the materials necessary to complete the Illinois Works NOFO application, access the Illinois Works Pre-Apprenticeship NOFO resources. After you've completed this webinar, you have a lot of information to be able to decide if this is a program you want to pursue, and also be able to understand how this program operates if you are successful at getting a particular grant from our organization. Please note that this session is being recorded and will be made available to you at the NOFO website. If you go to our NOFO website, in the bottom section of the NOFO website, you will see a listing of sessions that we're delivering for interested parties. Once we deliver a particular session, a few days later, 3 to 5 days later, the link for registration becomes the link to be able to download the webinar. So we encourage you to visit that website and be able to see the resources that we have available, in this case at the bottom of the page. We are now providing for you the link for the NOFO website in the chat in case you do not have it and you want to be able to, you want to access it. Before we move on to the next section, do you have any questions about this information before we proceed? Any questions or comments? If you have any questions or comments, feel free to unmute your line and post any questions in the chat. Dan, are there any questions or comments in the chat?
No, there are no questions in the chat.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on to section two. We are using WebEx technology, so we want to make sure that you have an opportunity to know how this technology works. So by the end of this section, you'll be able to use the WebEx features and functions to fully participate in training. And at the same time, you'll be able to identify what you hope to learn from this training. Just very quickly here, in order to be fully engaged, let us review some basic WebEx system features. The mute and unmute button is at the bottom left side of the screen as you look at the screen. Stop or start video, it's also there. Keep in mind that this start or stop video is for your own camera. It's not for the session itself. You could also raise your hand. There's a raise hand icon there that you can use. There's a whole suite of emojis that you can use to react of any of the content that we're presenting. There's also the chat feature, and it's important. We will be posting all kinds of resources in the chat, so make sure you know how to access the chat. It's being pointed on your screen right now. And there's also a groups function in this system that we will not be using today. To help facilitate the best experience, please keep your line muted to help manage potential interruptions during the training. The lines can be unmuted during question and answer sessions or group discussions. If you have a comment or question, please share it in the chat or unmute yourself during the question and answer sessions at the end of each of the training sections when permitted by the facilitator. There will definitely be particular points when we will ask if you have questions or comments to engage. So please keep that in mind. If you do have questions, you can put them in the chat and we'll be more than happy to answer them. We will try to respond to as many of your comments and questions as possible within the allotted time frame. But keep in mind that we do have a lot of content to cover today. So we'll do our best. In order to be very interactive today, we're going to use a system called Mentimeter. We now ask you to use your laptop or cell phone to access www.menti.com, www.menti.com, and enter the code that is now being shown on your screen, 4304-8485, 4304-8485. We're going to give it a minute for you to access Mentimeter. The first question on the screen once you access Mentimeter is for you to respond if you have already accessed it so that we know and keep tabulations of how many of our participants today have been able to access it. So as I mentioned, we'll a minute just to make sure that we have everybody able to access that tool in order to be interactive. We're going to be using that tool throughout this session, so it's important that you log in and join the conversation. Gia, do we have any updates on how many people are in?
Yes, right now we have 6 people who have logged in. And for those who would like to, the information for Mentimeter is available in the chat. They can just click on the link.
Great. Once again, we're going to just give it a minute because the next item for this webinar is using Mentimeter for you to provide information about yourself.
We now have 8 participants logged in.
Okay, we're supposed to have 17, so we still have a little way to go. Please let us know if you're having any issues with accessing Mentimeter. Again, you could access Mentimeter through your cell phone, through your laptop or desktop computer. just logging on to www.menti.com, MENTI.com, and use the code on your screen 43048485. 43048485. Any updates, Gia, where we are with the head count?
We now have 10 participants who have been able to log in.
Okay, we're still waiting for 8 more to be able to do that. So we're just going to give it 1 more minute and then we're going to get going.
Right, we now have 12. Thank you all who have logged in.
Thank you much. Okay, for those that have successfully logged in, if you could please use Mentimeter to share the following. Share your name, the name of the organization or agency you represent, your role within that organization, and also your geographic location. Again, your name, organization or agency you represent, the role that you play within that organization, and your geographic location. We have Liz joining us today from Well Black Hawk, college grants and project manager, Quad Cities, Illinois. Thanks for joining us. We have Tammy joining us from Prime. She's Prime Proposal Group Inc. President and Chief, and she is writing from Miami. Claire is joining us, Associate Director of Public Grants, Metropolitan Family Services from Chicago. Nikia is joining us from City Muslim Action Network, Manager of Program Compliance, again located in Chicago. Your Jetta is from Eminent Life Careers, located in Chicago. James, ESI, Director, Greater Chicago Area. Teresa, how are you, Teresa? Joining us from USMCA, and also President of the Reed Group in Chicago. Tina, YMCA Chicago, Metro Chicago, Executive Director, Economic Equity Programs, again located in Chicago. Nathan, CEO, Larry's Boys School Program in Maywood, Cook County. Do we have anybody else that would love to respond? I only see 9 responses on the screen, Gia, but it says that we have 12.
Yes, we have. Okay. Yep. These are the individuals who have, there we go.
Okay, great. Bertilian Andrews, Drew Industries CEO. I can barely see. Offland, Illinois. Ashley Washington from USMCA 2. Anybody else? Oh, here you go. Shukra from Quad County Urban League in Aurora, Illinois. Well, thanks again for joining. For those of us that are already logged into Mentimeter, we have 14 responses. If you could please, if you are not logged into Mentimeter, if you could please join so that you could participate as we move forward. So thanks again for being here. We appreciate you taking the time to learn a little bit more about Illinois Works, and particularly about this NOFO. We're going to continue to use Mentimeter just to make sure we develop some practice. And now we would like for you to answer the question, what do you hope to learn today? So what do you hope to get out of today's Bidders Conference? What is it that you would like to learn today? If you could please use Mentimeter to answer that, that would be great. So we're just giving it a minute for people to answer and then for the responses to tabulate on the screen here. The elements required to successfully complete and submit an application for this NOFO, we will certainly discuss those extensively today. More about the bidding process. We will discuss about how you submit an application, even though it's called a bidders conference, is really not a bidding process that is used for this. It's just the name that we use for the webinar. What makes a strong applicant? We will certainly discuss what elements are required for you to have a strong application. I hope to learn about eligibility proposal preparation. We will certainly discuss that extensively today. How to submit a winning application. You will certainly deduct that from all the information that we provide. Whether we can submit for funding to cover programs at multiple sites. That is certainly a consideration. You may want to ask that once we get to the eligibility criteria. The process to apply and eligibility requirements, we will certainly discuss that today. Program expectations and funding, that is part of our conversation today also. I have questions about the NOFO allowables and unallowables funding, whether it's reimbursement or advance pay. We will certainly discuss that today. We'll go extensively around those items so that you can have your responses. I think that there are some more responses, Gia, that I can only see 9 right now. More about the strategy development application. You know, again, everything related to this particular funding opportunity will be covered in today's session, both by the sections that I will cover, but also by the ones that my colleague Christine Flynn will do. Any other responses? Okay, moving forward, do we have any questions, Dan, before we move on to the next section?
Yes, I would just like to point out that there was an additional comment in the chat in terms of hoping to learn about best practices and grow within the state business. And then there was also a question regarding whether this will be recorded for future viewing.
Yeah, so we definitely are recording this session. And again, as I mentioned earlier, this is going to be made available in the NOFO's landing page at the bottom where you see all the sessions that we're delivering. Once a session is delivered, instead of having the registration link, you'll see a link to be able to download the webinar and listen to it in the future. Those of you that are participating via chat to answer our Mentimeter questions, I really encourage you to log on to Mentimeter using the information that we provide in the chat so that your interaction and your activity can be recorded in Mentimeter. So we would certainly appreciate if you could please, via using your cell phone or your laptop, you can access Mentimeter instead of using the chat for the Mentimeter activity. One final thing, if you have more comments, feedback, or questions after this training, you can certainly reach out to us. Our general email address at Illinois Works is ceo.illinoisworks@illinois.gov. Again, ceo.illinoisworks@illinois.gov. The information is being provided right now for you, and so that you could email us if you have other questions or comments. Okay. We will now proceed to section 3 of this session. For some of you, particularly for those that participated in the last webinar we did, it had to do specifically with an introduction to Illinois Works, and we want to make sure that everybody, we noticed that the majority of individuals that enrolled for this webinar did not attend that webinar. And we want to make sure that all of you have an understanding, a basic understanding of what Illinois Works is all about, how it came about, what its focus is. And then we will proceed to the specific items related to the NOFO and the program requirements. So we'll spend a few minutes dealing with this section. And then we'll go on to other important items for you. So at the end of section 3, you'll be able to describe the role of Governor Pritzker's historic $45 billion capital plan in the creation of Illinois Works, explain the role of the Illinois Works General Assembly regarding the Illinois Works Jobs Program Act, which is the law that created Illinois Works. Describe the unique characteristics of the Illinois Works Innovative Workforce Development Model in articulation of DCEO. Describe the relationship between DCEO and Illinois Works. Identify the relevant data that is evidence for the need for Illinois Works. Summarize the role of each of the Illinois Works 3 key programs and explain the current status of each of the 3 programs. Again, it's important to emphasize we have already delivered a webinar that extensively covered these items. Here, we're going to be doing a summary. So for those of you that attended that webinar on 7/25/23, this is going to be a quick review. But for those of you that have not attended that webinar and you want to have more understanding about these topics, you can go to the landing page and find the Introduction to Illinois Works webinar that was delivered on 7/25/23, and you'll have an opportunity to download the webinar there and listen to the recording. So as I mentioned, Illinois Works is a top priority for the governor's 5-year economic plan. With the new capital funding set to pave the way for tens of thousands of jobs over the next decade in the construction industry, the Illinois Works Jobs Program Act was intentionally, and I want to emphasize this, was intentionally designed to increase equity and opportunity in capital construction jobs for underserved groups, including people of color, women, and veterans. And those are the target populations of the Illinois Works Pre-Apprenticeship Program. We will discuss later specifically what that means, but I want to emphasize that Illinois Works as a bureau and its programs are focused on bringing about equity and inclusion to construction. The intention is to reinvigorate the Illinois workforce for the future. What's important about Illinois Works is that Illinois Works is it's a unique and innovative model. It's a unique and innovative workforce development model that increases job demand through one of its programs. It also increases the talent pipeline through the pre-apprenticeship program, which is the focus of our conversation today. But it also has a program that provides incentives to hire and retain. Typically, workforce development models have one, maybe 2 of these components, and a combination of these components can substantially impact the workforce. Illinois Works has all 3 components, focused exclusively on creating a comprehensive response to workforce development at all levels. So as I mentioned, we include the 3 elements here, vital elements to bring about this change that we're discussing. So Illinois Works is one of a kind initiative and is in a very unique position to make a substantial difference here in Illinois. So the Illinois Department of Commerce and its relationship to Illinois Works. The Office of Illinois Works at the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. The Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity's mission is to support and maintain a climate that enables a strong economy for our customers, including taxpayers, businesses, workers, and communities. So again, Illinois Works came about recently as of 2019 as a result of Governor Pritzker's $45 billion capital investment. It's called Rebuild Illinois. This capital investment, this money is being invested in rebuilding bridges, roads, schools, universities, prisons, providing broadband technology and infrastructure, and a variety of other things. This came as a result of the Illinois Works Jobs Program Act, which is a statewide initiative to ensure that all Illinois residents have access to state capital projects and careers, including the construction industry and the building trades. The goal is to provide contracting and employment opportunities to historically underrepresented populations in the construction industry. This effort specifically, again, targets women, people of color, and veterans. If you want more information, you could certainly go to our website at the DCEO website. So we are now providing the link for you in the chat. And by clicking that website, you'll be able to go to a section of the website called DCEO About Us. And in that website, you're going to be able to find the link for Illinois Works. Once you click that link, you'll be able to see our website. To the right of the web page, there's a link to each of the key Illinois Works programs, along with a contact us link where you could see our contact information. Um, at the same time, at the bottom of the page, you're going to be able to see a virtual assistant similar to a help function. Um, if you know of any contractor interested in also getting information, you're going to be able to see on our website a particular website dedicated for contractors where they can find all kinds of information related to Illinois Works. So again, the Office of Illinois Works, with the support and partnerships of communities, the building trades, the construction industry, delivers 3 key programs. The Illinois Works Apprenticeship Initiative, and that particular component, and we'll talk more about it in a minute, is directly related to creating demand. The second program is the Illinois Works Pre-Apprenticeship Program, which is the focus of our conversation, and it's a grant system. And the Illinois Works Bid Credit Program, which is an innovative bank that provides incentives for contractors to hire and retain our graduates. So all of this is being done with very particular goals in mind. With your partnership, when we achieve our goals, we would have provided a career pathway for residents in disadvantaged communities, provided eligible apprentices with the skills for lifelong job security, promoted construction as a viable job industry for women and minority communities, provided the construction industry with a consistent generations to come, and created new partnerships between state agencies and community organizations. So those are our key goals for these programs, and that is what we are working very hard to achieve. But why is all of this being done? We'll go over some key statistics and then discover and provide summaries about each of the programs that is being implemented. Data shows that for too long, the construction industry and the trades have not been accessible for diverse communities, with fewer than 10% of the best paid apprenticeships extended to women and minorities. An expansion of apprenticeship opportunities will not only help boost employment and wages for more Illinois residents, but will also yield significant benefits for our economy at large, since the construction sector is projected to grow 12% in the next 10 years. In fact, investments in job training in the construction industry can result in significant long-term economic impact for the state, totaling $1.2 billion. For every dollar invested in construction job training, Illinois obtains 11 in social and economic returns. So as you can see, this is a great investment for the state to make, but also for the individuals that are benefited by these investments. So where are the statistics that just these interventions? So we have demographics and information also from Illinois and the U.S. Department of Labor. According to the Illinois Department of Labor and the U.S. Department of Labor, particularly the RAPIDS data, which is the Registered Apprenticeship Partners Information Database System, that's how USDOL, the U.S. Department of Labor, tracks apprenticeship programs throughout the country. Here's the percent of apprentices employed in the state's construction industry by group. So as you can see in this table, demographically in the state of the women represent about 51% of the population. However, they're only 5% of all apprentices. We're only 5% of all apprentices in the state in 2021. African Americans at 15% of the Illinois population were only 9% of apprentices in the state of Illinois. Hispanics or Latinos at almost 18% of the population represented 17% of apprentices in 2021 in Illinois. American Indian and Native Alaskans are evenly represented. Asians are seriously underrepresented. They were 3% of the Illinois population, but were only 0.7% of all apprentices. And veterans are evenly represented at a population of almost 6% in the state, but represent 7% of all apprentices in the state of Illinois. One key thing to emphasize about this is that we are here in Illinois Works to make a difference with these numbers and again, bring equity to construction. You can see in the box in the far right column, these are the demographics of our students last program year that ended December 31st, 2022. So in our network, our students, 21% of our students were women, big increase from 5% in the general apprentices. African Americans were 64% compared to 9% of all apprentices. Hispanics were 16% compared to 17% of all apprentices. Um, American Indian and Native Alaskans were about evenly represented. Asians still need a lot of improvement within our network, and veterans also need a lot of improvement within our network. So those are the demographics of Illinois Works. We're making a difference, significant difference for the lives of several of those groups, but we still need to improve our numbers when it comes to some of the other groups. And we will discuss that because that's the target of this NOFO later on in this webinar. The first DCO Office of Illinois Works key program is the Illinois Works Apprenticeship Initiatives. That's the first program that was developed and implemented as part of this initiative. This program opens doors of opportunity into the construction industry and the building trades. The question is, how do we do that, right? It applies to public works projects with an estimated cost of $500,000 or more, including both capital grants, loans and credit, and direct capital contracts and awards. The way this program works is that in order to create demand in the construction industry, meaning in order to create jobs in the construction industry, there is a compliance component that is applicable to projects. And the goal is for the USDOL certified apprentices, not limited to Illinois Works Pre-Apprenticeship Program graduates, to perform 10% of the total hours actually work in each prevailing wage category, or 10% of estimated labor hours in each prevailing wage category, whichever is less. In summary, the goal is for these apprentices to do at least 10% of the hours in each wage classification, meaning 10% of the hours in electricity, 10% of the hours in carpentry, 10% of the hours in plumbing. So if there's a project that is being done out there funded by the state of Illinois, that is a requirement. Now, there is a legislative update that was done to the Illinois Works Jobs Program Act this summer, and it was recently signed into law by Governor Pritzker, that now requires that at least half of those 10% hours. So if there were, 10 hours that needed to be done by apprentices, at least half of those hours have to be done by Illinois Works graduates, among others. That means that if you do receive a grant and you have graduates, the opportunity is to place those graduates into jobs that need to comply with this requirement. So that's how those two programs are connected. By having an established goal, contractors generally find themselves in need to hire more apprentices, resulting in higher demand for apprentices and for our graduates. So what's the current status of that program? The apprenticeship initiative is operational and working on state agencies. So here's a snapshot right now of where we are as of just a month ago. The apprenticeship initiative launched in June of 2020 and is presently overseeing the compliance of over 600 projects worth over $10 billion. These projects are being executed by close to 10 different state agencies that give funding these projects to be executed throughout the state. As a part of Illinois Works' commitment to continuous quality improvement, in August of 2021, we launched a new system that allowed us to transition from a manual quarterly reporting system to real-time reporting system that utilizes Smartsheet technology. So state agencies now report their compliance with Illinois Works real-time on a daily basis, and we're able to proactively watch the compliance of those projects. So that's the first program that was implemented, the Illinois Works Apprenticeship Initiative, which creates demand, which creates job opportunities in the construction industry. The second program, which is the one that we'll focus on now, and it's also the focus of the NOFO that we'll be discussing later on, is the Illinois Works Pre-Apprenticeship Program. The next DCU Office of Illinois Works key program we will review is the Illinois Works Pre-Apprenticeship Program. The Illinois Works Apprenticeship Initiative creates the demand for jobs, and the Illinois Works Pre-Apprenticeship Program creates the pipeline of diverse candidates to help respond to that demand. The Illinois Works Pre-Apprenticeship Program creates a qualified talent pipeline to fill job opportunities with diverse candidates. For our grants, we strongly encourage proposals that provide training in disadvantaged communities and for underrepresented populations in construction and the trades. This includes women, people of color, and veterans. Now, I must say, and it's very important, those are the focus demographics. That does not mean that that's the only population that you can exclusively. We serve everybody in the state of Illinois. It just happens to be that our focus target populations are women, people of color, and veterans. Um, and it's important also to mention that this program specifically, it's a grant-based program. So we have a network of providers throughout the state of Illinois that we give grants to so that they can deliver the services that we contract them to provide. Pre-apprenticeship skills training, our providers, our program providers provide pre-apprenticeship skills training through a network of community-based organizations, which includes community colleges, nonprofit colleges, faith-based organizations, and business associations, among others. It's very important to emphasize that this funding opportunity is only for nonprofit organizations and public institutions. This funding opportunity cannot be used for for-profit purposes. So if you are a for-profit institution wanting to apply for one of these grants, you won't be able to do that. It's only for nonprofit or public institutions. Preference to underrepresented populations that have historically encountered barriers to entry and investment in public works trades, including minorities, women, and veterans. This program also offers free tuition and a stipend to participants who attend the program. Institutions are required to provide a stipend to all individuals that they enroll into their program. If your institution is not able to provide a stipend, then you would not be able to secure a grant from us. Now, the money that you use to pay for a stipend is money that we provide through the grant, but you need to have the means to provide for that stipend. Also, institutions need to be able to provide a comprehensive array of supportive services that are delivered to address systemic barriers which prevent underrepresented populations from entering the construction industry. This funding opportunity also provides generous funding at an average of $11,000 per participant. Illinois Works has a $25 million annual appropriation to fund our grantees. So again, that $25 million annual appropriation is specifically designed for the pre-apprenticeship program. It is not used to fund any of our other programs. It's only for our pre-apprenticeship program. If you want to get more information related to this, national best are available on NOFO on pages 4 to 7. In addition, you can review the requirements on pages 7 through 11 of the NOFO. Dan, are there any questions or comments in the chat?
Yes, Liz is asking if you could review the stipend portion again. I'm not sure if she has a specific question about the stipends, but
We will later on I will mention a little bit more in a minute, but we will later on in the webinar address the issue of stipends. So stipends for Illinois Works are performance based. Individuals are required to get a stipend. Grantees can give stipends up to a certain dollar amount per training hour, and they're supposed to document those properly. They need to have a policy on how they pay stipends. They need to have the evidence that shows they pay stipends, but stipends are definitely required. Stipends are not wages, and it's important that we really have that clear. No wages. Stipends are incentives that we pay students to support them as they go through the program, but we will certainly discuss that more in depth. In fact, the next item here on the webinar has to do with the grantee manual. So Illinois Works has provided the 2023 grantees with a grantee manual as a resource for instructions, guidance, tools, expectations for program design, implementation, and delivery. There's a whole section in the grantee manual related to stipends. So we will be providing now in the chat the link to the grantee manual. I encourage you to take a look at the grantee manual. If you're looking for any specific information related to these policies and procedures, you will certainly find information there related to stipends. Illinois Works is a semi-structured model with minimum program standards and outcomes, which are outlined in the manual. Guidelines that articulate structural expectations can be found in this document. So once again, if you want to read over what Illinois Works is all about, I encourage you to go to the 2023 grantee manual. The link is already provided in the chat for you, and you'll be able to read through all the policies and procedures there. A 2024 grantee manual is currently under development and will be available to all grantees that receive funding for 2024. So again, we're already working on the 2024 grantee manual. We publish a grantee manual for each program year. So you'll be able to have an updated one if you are successful at securing a grant. Are there any questions, Dan, that I should address at this point?
If you could just clarify the average grant award amount, there is a question regarding that.
So $11,000 is the average per participant grant award. If you're looking to serve, 50 students, 2 cohorts of 25, then multiply that by 11,000. If you're looking to serve 25 students, multiply that by 11,000. That's the average per participant award that we'll be making. Keep in mind, and I will address this later on in the webinar, if you do come in at a lower rate than that, that's fine. If you do come in at a higher rate than that, you may lose points on the evaluation because the average funding level for this opportunity is $11,000 per participant. Any other questions before I move on, Dan?
No more questions in the chat.
Okay, great. So what's the current status of this program? As of January 1, 2023, we have 29 programs operating across the state of Illinois. We met investment of $12.6 million last year to bring up this network to 29 providers. The average award last year was $436,000 per grantee. Our present network of providers have capacity to serve approximately 120 Illinois residents throughout the majority of economic development regions of the state of Illinois. Our goal with this year's NOFO is to grow our provider network to 40 to 45 providers covering the whole state of Illinois with capacity to serve about 1,800 Illinois residents. So that's where we are. That's the status now in relation to this group. And once again, I want to emphasize, the fact that our network is focused on increasing equity and inclusion in construction. And as a result, the statistics reflect that, right? We have higher levels of women participating in our programs, higher levels of African Americans and other minorities, but we do have some areas that we need to emphasize in. Given our current trends, Illinois Works is well positioned to impact equity in construction in the building trades in Illinois by decisively reaching out to, recruiting, training, graduating, and transitioning key target underrepresented minorities and veterans. Okay, one tool that I wanted to mention, and we are in the process of updating it for this program year, but it's still on our website. If you go to our website, you're going to be able, under the pre-apprenticeship program, you're going to be able to find a tool called the Illinois Works Heat Map. This is one of many tools that Illinois Works is making available to its grantees to support their success. This technology provides an overview of statewide demographic data, Illinois Works project data, as well as the location and essential information for all Illinois pre-apprenticeship programs and DOL registered apprenticeship programs. Grantees can access through this map information about all of our pre-apprenticeship programs, where they're located, contact information, the program itself, the concentration of underrepresented populations. You could click on particular counties and you can see what the concentration of underrepresented populations are there. Economic development regions, they're separated by different color lines. You could also see Illinois Works projects by county. The color of the county tells you the concentration of projects that are happening in that county. And of critical importance, you could also see information about DOL registered apprenticeship programs in the state of Illinois. This map is utilized by both the pre-apprenticeship program and the apprenticeship initiative to connect the public with local training programs as well as contractors with apprentices. The map coloring demonstrates the number of Illinois Works projects happening in each county, with the dark pink symbolizing higher concentrations and the darker teal representing lower concentration projects. So that is definitely a tool that you can go and to our website and use, and it's an important tool. And as I said, we're updating the tool now to include this year's programs, and it should be ready to go in the next couple of weeks. Okay, the last Illinois Works program we'll discuss is which is the final Office of Illinois Works key program, is the Illinois Works Bid Credit Program. The Illinois Works Bid Credit Program is the first program that we discussed. The initiative creates a demand for jobs, right, in construction. Second program we just finished discussing, which is the pre-apprenticeship program, creates a talent pipeline of diverse candidates to help respond to that demand. But to complete the puzzle of Illinois Works, we have created incentives to help ensure that Illinois Works pre-apprenticeship program graduates are hired and retained by contract subcontract. A talent pipeline, but when contractors hire our graduates and they retain them, they get incentives in the form of bid credits. The Illinois Works Bid Credit Program incentivizes contractors to hire and retain a diverse pool of candidates. It allows contractors and subcontractors to earn bid credits by employing apprentices who have completed the Illinois Works Pre-Apprenticeship Program. Bid credits can be used toward future bids for public works projects contracted by the state of Illinois or an agency of the state. So once contractors hire and retain our graduates, they earn bid credits that then they use whenever they're bidding for state-funded projects. They can earn those bid credits to make their bids more competitive, and as a result be able to win bids that they wouldn't otherwise be able to win if they didn't have bid credits. The Illinois Works Bid Credit Program incentivizes contractors to hire and retain a diverse pool of candidates. In summary, what it does is that it allows contractors to earn bid credits that they use for future bids for public works projects contracted by the state or an agency of the state. Bid credits can only be earned for employing apprentices who have completed the Illinois Works Pre-Apprenticeship Program, and they can be used on public works projects contracted by state agencies. DCO determines the bid credit earning rate by rule based on labor hours worked on state contracted public works projects by apprentices who completed our program. The rate, this earning rate is published. It may include maximum bid credits allowed per contractor, per subcontractor, per apprentice, per bid, or per year. The Illinois Works Bid Credit Bank is being established and administered by DCO. DCO is developing a mechanism and technological tools for tracking the bid credits. So it's basically a bid credit bank. Contractors open an account, they hire our graduates, and then they earn bid credits that are deposited into their account. They can withdraw those bid credits whenever they want to bid on a project, and if they win those projects, those bid credits are withdrawn from their account. It's a very interactive system. Again, it's incentives for contractors to hire and retain our graduates. The bid credit program is in the design stages and will be ready for implementation by October 2023. The program's framework and rules are presently being finalized. And it's important to emphasize this. Illinois Works in total as a bureau with all of its programs it's a fairly new operation. It started in 2019. It's only been around for a few years, and it's been systematically implementing different programs through time. In addition to the bid credit platform that is presently under development, the applicant tracking system tracks graduates of the Illinois Works Pre-Apprenticeship Program and allows construction companies to review their resumes for hire. So if you do get a grant and you deliver pre-apprenticeship programming, those graduates that you graduate will then be entered in the applicant tracking system with their resume, and contractors will be able to access that information whenever they're looking for candidates to hire. To learn more about Illinois Works, we encourage you to access the webinar that was delivered on July 25. You can do so by going to the Illinois Works Pre-Apprenticeship NOFO website. You can access the website by going to the link, clicking on the link that is being provided for you now in the chat. And again, as I said, once you get to the NOFO website at the bottom of the page, you'll be able to see all the webinars that we have already delivered and that we still have to deliver, so that you can either learn live by joining the webinar or access the recording that is going to be placed there in the same spot where you would have been able to register for a webinar. Before we proceed to the next section, do we have any questions or comments about the Illinois Works key programs? Dan, any questions or comments?
Yes, there is a question in the chat. It's asking, hi Norman, is it hard to hire and retain the workers when you don't have steady work or contracts to keep them working? Does Illinois Works have a plan in place for contractors to obtain work from nonprofit agencies?
We don't get involved in the bidding of projects. That's not within the purview of Illinois Works. By law, Illinois Works works with state agencies that are executing those projects, that are giving money to those projects. Now, one thing I can tell you, though, Teresa, is that by participating in the Illinois Works Bid Credit Program, as a contractor or subcontractor, you'll be a lot more competitive. If you're a subcontractor with bid credits, there will be general contractors interested in using your services to gain access to those bid credits. And as a general contractor, if you have bid credits or can get subcontractors with bid credits, your bids will be more competitive to be able to win projects with the state or nonprofits that are receiving money from the state, or there are other municipalities receive a lot of money from the state to execute projects. So that's the way that it's intended for contractors to win projects and constantly have work. But we directly at Illinois Works have nothing to do with how those projects are being put out there for letting, for bidding. That's something that is done by state agencies that receive money. We don't receive money to do capital projects. Our money is to give grants to organizations to do pre-apprenticeship programming. Any other questions, Dan?
No, there are no other questions in the chat.
Okay, great. Thanks again. I appreciated that. So that finishes the overview related to Illinois Works and the programs. It's important to keep in mind the whole context as you decide if you're going to apply for a pre-apprenticeship program. It's not just the pre-apprenticeship program. There's a whole system related to that. I'm going to hand it over now to my colleague, Christine Flynn, who will do the next couple of sections, and then we're going to go into and then I'll come back to discuss some of the key elements related to the NOFO itself. Christine, please.
Yes, thank you so much, Norman. So I am going to jump into our section talking about GATA eligibility. So in this section, or by the end of this section, you will be able to describe the role of GATA in the Notice of Funding Opportunity process. You'll be able to access the GATA pre-qualification website, and you'll also be able to revisit or listen to the GATA pre-qualification recorded session that we had earlier this week. So now, as many of you know, because you are in attendance today, the DCEO Notice of Funding Opportunity, also known as NOFO, for the Illinois Works Pre-Apprenticeship Program was released on July 14th of this year. You can access the press release that discusses the impact of this opportunity and what goes into it by clicking on the link that Dan is going to provide for you in the chat right now. That link is going to take you right to our press release. It has a wealth of information about the notice of funding as well as the impact of the program so far. Now, each year, our NOFO's goals change based on what our network needs. And the goal of the Illinois Works Pre-Apprenticeship Program is to overall provide grants to community-based organizations. So that can include accredited public colleges or universities, nonprofit organizations, business associations, or coalitions throughout the state that will recruit, pre-screen, and provide pre-apprenticeship skills training. Successful grantees will be expected to provide pathways and manage the transition from the pre-apprenticeship program to a DOL registered apprenticeship program in construction and the building trades. Now, as I mentioned, that is our overall goal, but each NOFO, we try to improve our network to make sure that we are really helping as many Illinoisans as possible, but also really ensuring that every Illinoisan has access to these services. So the 2023 Illinois Works NOFO has a dual goal this year. The first is to increase representation in key geographic areas, which we'll talk about in our next slide, and increase the number of programs that can serve underrepresented groups we presently or are not adequately serving in our current network. So these individuals include individuals of Asian descent, women, and veterans. So we also want to ensure that, increasing those populations are also preserving the services and the service levels we're providing to African Americans and Hispanics as well. We've been very proud of our network that they've been able to engage those two populations. So we definitely don't want to see those numbers drop, but we do need to ensure that individuals of Asian descent, women, and veterans are also represented in our grantee network as well. So presently, the Illinois Works Pre-Apprenticeship Program funds 29 programs located throughout the state of Illinois. And the 2023 NOFO is focused on awarding grants in geographic areas where the Office of Illinois Works does not presently have pre-apprenticeship programs, with the goal of increasing the representation of underrepresented groups that presently are not served or are underserved. So again, individuals of Asian descent, veterans, and women. But our geographic priority areas this year include those on the screen. So the first is the Central Region in Sangamon County. Next, we have the North Central Region, which is Peoria County and McLean County. Then the Northeast Region, which includes DeKalb, DePage, Kane, Kankakee, Kendall, and McHenry counties, as well as suburban Cook County and Will County. The Northwest Region, we are looking for LaSalle, Rock Island, and Whiteside County. And then finally, in the Southern Region, we are looking at Jackson County. So Illinois Works is also seeking to increase recruitment, training, and transition for populations in these areas as well as outside of these areas. So these are our priority areas, meaning that we're really looking for these counties to apply. We don't have grantees there, or we have those areas are just underserved currently. But we are open to all counties to apply. These are just kind of our highly prized areas right now. So Illinois Works plans to fund up to 20 new grantees to join our renewal grantees to create a network of 40 to 45 providers with the capacity to serve over 1,800 Illinois residents. So as Norman mentioned earlier, we currently have 29 grantees. We're looking to expand somewhere between 40 to 45 providers. New grantees can be either experienced or inexperienced providers, large or small, as long as your organization has the ability to reach the underrepresented populations that we outlined and can effectively serve them. Now let's talk about what is the first step in getting pre-qualified for GATA. So GATA, just to start out, stands for the Grant Accountability and Transparency Act. So pre-qualification under that act, you'll often hear us call it GATA pre-qualification for short, allows you to be able to actually apply for this NOFO. So no individual organizations can apply for this NOFO without GATA pre-qualification. For more information regarding GATA pre-qualification, you can access the GATA website link using the link that is being shared in the chat right now. So that GATA website will give you a whole host of information about the act, what's required, and pre-qualification requirements for this NOFO and any NOFO that you may be looking at. Now, it is really important, and I want to just emphasize this, it does take several weeks to get GATA pre-qualified. So if you have not at this point completed your GATA pre-qualification or started that process, it is critical to get started right now. This is not just a state process. There is a federal process that goes into this as well. So it does take time for both of those entities to ensure they have everything that they need to count you as pre-qualified. So if you've not started, please go ahead and start as soon as possible. Now, just as a reminder, if you do not have this GATA pre-qualification, your proposal in response to this NOFO or any other state NOFO will not be considered. That GATA pre-qualification is extremely important. So all of Illinois Works NOFO applicants must complete that pre-qualification process. If you are already pre-qualified, you need to make sure that your GATA portal, so your profile on the GATA portal, is in good standing. Your GATA profile must be maintained, so there are aspects of your GATA profile that you need to update periodically on an annual basis. You want to make sure that that is always maintained so that you are always current and in good standing. And you must ensure that your GATA portal is cleared. So the state of Illinois is developing a new statewide life cycle grant management system. This new system will provide a common internet accessible platform for all grant activities, which will be accessible through a grantee portal. Now, to access the grantee portal, please access the link that is being shared in the chat now. For those of you who are not familiar with that portal, you can go there, you can sign up, and you can get going with that process as early as today. So again, if you have not started that, please go ahead and do that now. Now, next up, I want to talk about a really great resource that has been developed by our Office of Accountability. That is our grantee resource webpage. So for more information regarding the above criteria, you can access the GATA grantee resource website using the link that is being shared in the chat now. This is extremely useful for all applicants, but especially for those who are new to working with the state. This website will give you an immense amount of information. It's very clear. They have a lot of visuals to walk you through this process. So please access that website. That link is in the chat for you now. Now, earlier this week, our colleague from the Office of Accountability provided a detailed overview of the GATA process during our training, GATA training for new state applicants. This session, along with additional session offerings, are available on the Illinois Works Pre-Apprenticeship NOFO 2023 website. And you'll just scroll to the bottom of that website to find all of our information sessions. You can access that website using the link that is now being shared in the chat for you. Now, on that website, in addition to upcoming trainings, you will also be able to locate our webinar recordings. So we had a question earlier, is this going to be recorded? The answer is yes, all of these trainings will be recorded. So if you are unable to attend a live session, you can access a recording of this training and any of our trainings on our 2023 NOFO website. It does take roughly 5 business days to post our webinars, so if you don't see it right away, please revisit, and that recording will be made available for you. And as you can see on the screen here, the link that you registered for this training for will be replaced by a link that says recording, and that is how you can access any of our recordings for any of the 5 sessions that we have. Now, after today's session, there will be 2 final sessions in this NOFO Technical Assistance series. The first that is coming up, currently scheduled for next week, is our Illinois Works performance-based payment model. During that session, we will discuss how grantees are funded under the Illinois Works model in combination with the state's reimbursement model. The final session in our series is called Developing Partnerships. So partnerships are not only a cornerstone of a successful Illinois Works pre-apprenticeship program, but as we'll discuss later, they are a requirement of our program. So if you want to learn more about the expectations regarding Illinois Works partnerships, please plan to attend the Developing Partnerships session on August the 15th. Now, again, you can register for any of those sessions on our 2023 NOFO website, along with all of those recordings. So before we move to our next section, Dan, are there any questions in the chat regarding anything that I just discussed?
No, there are no questions in the chat.
Okay, great. Well, let's go ahead and move on to our next section, where we are going to do an overview of the NOFO website. So I'm sure some of you are already familiar with this NOFO website, but by the end of this section, you will be able to access information about the DCEO Notice of Funding Opportunity. You'll be able to describe the available features of the Illinois Works Pre-Apprenticeship NOFO 2023 website, and you'll be able to download the Illinois Works Pre-Apprenticeship Program NOFO materials. So in addition to the GATA pre-qualification training information that I just reviewed, the Illinois Works Pre-Apprenticeship NOFO 2023 website also has all of the information you need regarding this notice of funding opportunity. Again, I know we've shared this link a couple of times now, but I hope you take that as just understanding how important this site is. All of the information that you need is on this site. So that chat link is being provided for you in the chat again. This website offers a wealth of information and support regarding funding for the Illinois Works Pre-Apprenticeship Program, including program background, program design, frequently asked questions, NOFO materials, funding information, submission details, award timeline, resources, and those information sessions. So if you want to, I'm going to do a review of these items. If you want to follow along, please feel free to go to that chat or the link in the chat, and you can kind of tour with me as I give you a tour of this site. So let's first start off with the navigation bar at the top of our NOFO website. So that top bar of the website will provide you with information regarding English and Spanish translation, as well as partners. So those partners that are listed on there are all of the partner organizations related to Illinois WorkNet. And that's a lot of our partners and just partners generally across the state that are offering a lot of workforce development services. Next up is our NOFO resources section. So this section includes NOFO NOFO references, resources for competitive applications, resources on national best practices for pre-apprenticeship and apprenticeship programs, and resources on national best practices for equity pre-apprenticeship and apprenticeship programs. So all of these items really serve as the foundation for our NOFO. They serve as a foundation for our program overall. This program was designed based on national best practice. So reviewing these resources can really help you understand what is the basis of this program, what are the goals of this program, and give you some ideas of what might make your program more competitive in this NOFO process. So as we reviewed earlier, this is also where you're going to find information on those information sessions. None of our sessions are required, but we really stress these because they're extremely important. We've found that grantees that are successful in their applications are also grantees that have attended these sessions. We provide a lot of information in these sessions about what it means to be successful on this application. So make sure to visit those recordings or attend these sessions live if you can. Again, all of those are recorded. All of those will be available through the time that this application is due. So if you want to rewatch or revisit, you can always do that as well. So next up is our NOFO materials. So to download the NOFO materials, you will go to the section that is titled NOFO materials on the right side of the screen, and you will select Illinois Works Pre-Apprenticeship NOFO. Everything that you need to succeed and complete the NOFO is available to you on this website. All of our required documents for what you need to submit are under this section of NOFO materials. So please visit that section. The NOFO will outline everything that's required, but this section will give you the actual documents that you need to submit. So we are coming to the end of this section. Are there any questions in the chat right now, Dan, about the NOFO website?
No, there are no questions in the chat.
All right. Well, great. Well, just a reminder, please feel free to put questions in the chat. During those question and answer sections, you can also unmute yourself if you would prefer. But right now, I am going to actually send us to a 10-minute break before we delve into actually looking at the program requirements and what the merit reviewers are going to be looking at from this NOFO application. So it is 10:47 right now. If you all, get up, stretch your legs, get some water, and come back at 10:57 to learn more about the specifics of this notice of funding opportunity.
Thanks again for joining us today. We are going to get going with the most important part of this webinar, which is section 6, specifically dealing with the NOFO and the various sections of the NOFO. And in particular, we're also going to be discussing some key required program elements. So by the end of this section, you'll be able to access the NOFO materials available on the Illinois Works Pre-Apprenticeship NOFO website, including the required attachments 1 through 4. Describe the NOFO 8 distinct content sections, A through H. Incorporate each of the required program elements into your application.
He crazy.
If you could please make sure you're muted as you come back. List the required materials to submit an application, application by the due date and time, articulate the evaluation criteria, and access references and resources on the NOFO website. Again, this is the most important portion of the webinar, so I would appreciate if you would stay engaged. If you have any questions or comments, please don't hesitate to enter them in the chat, or when allowed, if you could unmute your line and then ask your questions. To download the NOFO, you can go to the landing page. On the center right-hand side, you're going to find a section called the NOFO materials. For the actual document is there. You just click on it and download it. The uniform application is also there. The budget template is also there. Conflict of interest disclosure, the mandatory disclosure, attachment 1, which is the proposed work plan, attachment 2, which is the participant demographic and outcome summary, attachment 3, which is the sample curriculum and proposed curriculum, and finally, the last attachment, attachment 4, which is the staffing plan. All of these documents are required to be submitted if you are interested in applying for a grant with Illinois Works. The Illinois Works Pre-Apprenticeship NOFO has 8 distinct content sections, and we will review each of them in detail later in this section. Let's start with the uniform application. The uniform application serves as both a guide and a checklist for your NOFO application. It identifies what needs to be included in order for in the order for which the content should be presented, and critical identifying information regarding the applicant. The uniform application must be submitted with your application proposal. Do you have any questions about the uniform application? If you have applied to state funding before, you will notice that it's a standard form that all grants use. So if you have applied before to state grants, there's nothing new on this form. But let me know if you have any questions related to the uniform application. Dan, are there any questions in the chat?
There are no questions in the chat, Norman.
Okay, let's talk about the budget template. The budget template is an Excel spreadsheet. It is a comprehensive document that contains 20 tabs. The first tab provides instructions for completion. The remaining tabs allow you to detail your budget activities by the following categories. So again, tab 1, as I mentioned, is general instructions. Section A, it deals with state of Illinois funds. Section B deals with non-state of Illinois funds. Section C deals with is the budget worksheet and narrative. It is very important to keep in mind that the first couple of pages are locked because they utilize auto functions, which automatically add the numbers entered from the subsequent sheets, personnel, fringe benefits, etc. The subsequent sheets are available for you to enter your budget information. When preparing your budget, keep in mind that the expected rate per individual served should be approximately $11,000 for all services provided. And I want to emphasize this because you could certainly request $15,000 or $20,000 per participant. One, we're not going to give you $15,000 or $20,000 per participant, but more importantly, you could lose points as part of the evaluation if you are not close to $11,000 per participant. Your budget must be submitted with your application proposal. When completing your budget, here are some key things to keep in mind. You need to provide a justification and rationale for each line item. Under budget narrative, explain how you arrive at your requested numbers. Let me just tell you what we typically see a lot of times. Someone enters a cost for something for $1,000, and in the budget narrative, they include a calculation on how they arrived at that number. The calculation does not match the number. If you follow the calculation, it may be $1,200, but the number entered on the budget is $1,000. So you really need to make sure that your narrative, your justification, your rationale really justifies the $1,000, not $1,200 or $1,300. Also confirm the amount for each line item is accounted for in your totals. Ensure there is alignment budget narrative and the dollar amount entered in the spreadsheet. Finally, allocate funds for participation in Illinois Works professional development in per-person events. I'm sorry, in-person events, including, and this is important because these are required events, including a regional meeting and an annual conference. We run regional meetings and an annual conference for our grantees, and they are required to attend. And these budgets need to reflect funding to travel and attend those events. So that is in relation to the budget template. Any questions, Dan, related to the budget template?
There is a question in the chat from Nakia. It says, for the uniform application, what is the CSFA number and title for this grant? Is that different from the funding opportunity number and title?
You can find that information on the first page of the NOFO. Anything else, Dan?
No, there are no other questions in the chat.
Okay, moving on to conflict of interest disclosure. The conflict of interest disclosure allows you to disclose details about potential conflicts of interest concerning employment, financial concerns, and other matters. The conflict of interest disclosure must be submitted with your application or proposal. There's also a mandatory disclosure. The mandatory disclosure form federal criminal law involving fraud, bribery, or gratuity violations potentially affecting the award. This is also a mandatory document and it must be submitted with your application and proposal. Finally, we have the attachments. Later in this section, we will discuss each of the following attachments in more detail, but you will see, as I mentioned on the landing page, these 4 attachments: the proposed work plan, the participant demographic and outcome summary, the sample curriculum and proposed curriculum, and the staffing plan. All of these attachments are required to be submitted with your proposal. Are there any other questions related to the uniform application budget template, conflict of interest disclosure, and a mandatory disclosure, Dan?
No, I'm not seeing any other questions in the chat.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Moving on to the next section here. So let us revisit the 2023 Illinois Works Pre-Apprenticeship Program, NOFO. So this NOFO has a total of 8 distinct sections labeled A through H. Each of these sections will provide detailed information regarding the respective content included. So Section A is program description, Section B is funding information, Section C is eligibility information, Section D is application and submission information, Section E is application review information, Section F is award administration, Section G is state awarding agency contact, and Section H is other information. We're going to go through each of these sections right now, provide some highlights and some key information. But let's start with Section A, Program Description. This section provides an overview of Governor Pritzker's executive order regarding workforce development and job creation the Illinois Works, the three key programs that we have already reviewed at the beginning of this webinar. And it also includes national best practices, program history, program goals, program requirements, performance goals, and measures. Please keep in mind that we will revisit the program requirements in a lot of detail later on in this session. So you may want to stay to the end of this session because Christine will come back and review all the program requirements one by one. Let's discuss the NOFO goal, which is so important here. Keep in mind the goal of the Illinois Works Pre-Apprenticeship Program is to provide grants to community-based organizations, including accredited public and nonprofit colleges and universities, or coalitions throughout the state that will recruit, pre-screen, provide pre-apprenticeship skills training, and transition participants to full apprenticeship programs in the construction industry and the building trades. And I want to emphasize that we are looking for organizations that can provide this whole array of services: recruit, pre-screen, provide pre-apprenticeship skills training, and train transition participants to DOL registered apprenticeship programs. You cannot apply just to do one thing or the other. You have to apply to provide all of it. If you are not able or you do not have a particular service that you offer within your shop, partner with some other organization that can offer the services that you do not offer. But we will only consider applications that can provide all the services, be it by themselves or in partnership with other providers. Presently, the Illinois Works Pre-Apprenticeship Program funds programs throughout the state of Illinois. This NOFO is focused on awarding grants in geographic areas where the Office of Illinois Works does not presently have pre-apprenticeship programs, and to increase the representation of underrepresented groups that presently are not served or are underserved by existing programs. The key demographics that we're targeting, Christine also mentioned this before, is individuals of Asian descent, women, and veterans. That does not mean that those are the only groups that we will give grants to serve. Just means that these are the target groups that we presently have for this NOFO. But if you do want to serve some other group that is part of our target, be it demographic or geographic, you can certainly do that and submit your application. The 2023 NOFO is focused on awarding grants in geographic areas where the Office of Illinois Works does not presently have pre-apprenticeship programs, with the goal of increasing the representation of underrepresented groups that presently are not served or are underserved populations, specifically Asians, veterans, and women. The geographic areas that we're targeting are Central Region, which is Region 1, particularly Sangamon County, North Central Region, which is Region 3, particularly the Peoria County, McLean County, the Northeast region, which is Region 4, particularly DeKalb County, DuPage County, Kane County, Kankakee County, Kendall County, McHenry County, Suburban Cook County, and Will County. Northwest Region number 6, we're targeting LaSalle County, Rock Island County, Whiteside County. In Southern Region, which is Region number 8, we're targeting Jackson County. Again, I want to emphasize that these are areas of focus. However, if you're located in some other area and want to serve underrepresented populations, you can certainly submit your application and it will be considered for funding. This is a very important point. The Department's Illinois Works Office reserves the right to award based on geographic necessity, where state-funded capital projects are projected to take place, where Illinois Works presently does not have pre-apprenticeship programs, and based on ensuring that underserved populations significantly increase their representation in the ranks of the construction trades apprentices. If you want more information related to these topics, you can certainly go to section 8 under other information. Okay, so that's section A. Section B now, funding information. This section provides information regarding funding. This is a grant program utilizing state funds created by the General Assembly under Public Act 102-0017. You can access this act using the link that is now being shared for you in the chat. The department expects to award up to $10 million for grants under this NOFO. Each individual grant will range between $55,000 and $550,000, depending on the number of individuals the program projects to serve in 1 year period and the specific needs of their target population. And I want to emphasize that the dollar amount that I just mentioned, $55,000 to $550,000, is for one program year. Typically, our program year goes from January 1st, and in this case, January 1st, 2024, to December 31st, 2024. Once if you are successful on receiving a grant from Illinois Works, you are part of the funding pipeline, and you could potentially get 3 years of funding. So the first year you would apply competitively to get funding. The second year, if you're successful at performing under this grant system, you could renew your grant for another year. And if you are successful at delivering services that second year, you could renew your grant for a third year, and you wouldn't have to reapply competitively for funding until the fourth year. That's the way our funding system works. You can also find funding information in this section regarding administrative costs, pre-award and application costs, budget contingency, and the award term. And I want to emphasize this following point, that Illinois Works grantees, present Illinois Works grantees, can submit an application in response to this NOFO only if they propose to serve a different geographic area or economic development region other than the one that they were originally contracted to serve. So if you are a present Illinois Works grantee and you want to apply for more funding, you could only do so if you are planning to serve a different geographic area or economic development region. If what you're looking is to renew your funding for next year, then you can certainly do that through the renewal process, which we will be putting out in September. More information related to this section can be found on page 12. Any questions in the chat, Dan, before I proceed to section C?
Yes, we have a question from Tina clarifying her question about multiple sites. She's with the YMCA Metro Chicago, and they have 14 sites, including several in target counties.
I mean, she can certainly apply, but she cannot submit an application for all regions. She would have to submit different applications for different geographic areas. So Chicago, it's one, and she has several sites in Chicago. She can certainly apply for several sites, but outside of Chicago, if she wants to target several areas outside of Chicago, she would have to submit applications for each of those areas. Is that all the questions or comments, Dan?
Yes, that was the only question in the chat.
Okay, moving on to eligibility information. It is important to understand the eligibility information for this NOFO opportunity. As we have discussed, GATA registration and pre-qualification is required to apply for this funding. This section reinforces that expectation. It's important to know that if you are on the Illinois Stop Payment List and or the federal excluded parties list at the time of application submission, your submission will not be considered for an award. Applicants must be in good standing in order to receive an award from the state of Illinois. Again, eligible applicants under this NOFO are nonprofit community-based organizations, and that is defined in the law as colleges, be it public or nonprofit colleges. For-profit colleges do not qualify to apply. Chambers of commerce, local workforce innovation areas, technical schools, school districts, nonprofit organizations. All of those organizations can certainly apply. You can find more information about eligibility on page 14 of the NOFO. Funding is available for new and experienced providers and existing Illinois Works grantees. So let's discuss how the funding works for experienced and new providers. This NOFO will consider organizations that have experience in a trajectory delivering construction pre-apprenticeship and other construction training programs. Applicants that have not operated a pre-apprenticeship program but have experience serving the underrepresented populations are encouraged to apply in partnership with other relevant organizations that have experience in effective design and delivery of the required services. Existing Illinois Works grantees. Existing Illinois Works grantees can submit an application in response to this NOFO only if they propose to serve a different geographic area than the or economic development region than the one that they were originally contracted to serve. If you are a previous Illinois Works grantee but were not renewed your funding, organizations that were previously funded by Illinois Works are able to apply for this funding opportunity. Previous performance Illinois Works pre-apprenticeship program will be taken into consideration. As a result, those applicants should plan to address how their program will address previous performance issues. If you were not renewed in the past because you had some performance gaps and you plan to apply, you can certainly do so, but you need to make sure that you address how you will or how you have dealt or how you will deal with any performance issues you had in the past because your previous performance will be taken into consideration when deciding if we fund you again. In addition to what we have shared, you will find the following under section C. You will find information about obviously eligible applicants, cost sharing or matching. It's important to mention under cost sharing and matching that matching funds are not required for you to apply. However, projects that include matching and or leverage funds from multiple funding sources will be given priority consideration. This section also includes information about indirect costs and other information as applicable. Any questions for section C, Dan, before I move on to section D?
There are no questions in the chat.
Great. Application and submission information. This section provides specific information regarding the submission of your grant application, including where forms can be found and how to contact the Deputy Director of Illinois Works, Norman Ruano. Additionally, this section informs you of the list of items that must be included in your application packet, and it must be submitted when it must be submitted and funding restrictions. Now, this next part here is really, really important. So please ask your questions if you have any questions. I want to make sure that this is very clear. All application materials must be submitted by August 30th by 5 p.m. That does not mean that you cannot submit it by the 25th, by the 27th, by the 28th, by the 20th if you're ready to do so. It's just that we will not accept applications after August 30th by 5 p.m., but you can certainly submit it before that. And it needs to be submitted through the Smart Sheet form linked in the NOFO document in this section. So in this section, we provided the link. It's a Smart Sheet link that you will use to submit all of your documents. DCEO cannot accept any application materials via email or through a link, a Google Drive or Dropbox. We will not accept any materials, be it attachments or resumes or anything else that you want to submit using Google Drive or Dropbox, etc. You can only submit the application and all the required documents using the Smartsheet link that we provided in this section. When you submit your application, you will be asked if you want a copy of the application. I encourage you to do that so that you have a receipt of us receiving the application. You please respond yes. You will be prompted to add your email address. When you add your email address and you submit your application, you will receive a copy of the application submission, which serves as confirmation of the receipt of your application by DCEO. So I encourage you to do that so that you know we have received your application. Otherwise, you may not know. Um, if you want more information related to these matters, you can go to page 16 of the NOFO. This section also outlines the notice of intent to apply. Now, just to make sure we're on the same page, you are not required to submit a notice of intent. However, if you do, it's helpful for us for planning and evaluation process, knowing how many people we're going to need for the evaluation. So if your organization intends to apply for the NOFO DCO request, you submit a notice of intent to apply, which will help with the planning for the application merit review process. These are optional submissions and are due, if you do decide to submit one, are due by August 9th at 5 p.m. Demographic populations the applicant intends to serve. As I said, the notice of intent is not required. We do encourage it if you're able to do so. Okay, section E, application review information. There are multiple criteria that applicants must meet under this NOFO, including but not limited to the applicant's capacity, documentation of need, project quality, and integration, cost effectiveness, and return on investment. Remember how I mentioned earlier that if you request more than $11,000 per participant, you may lose points during the evaluation process? And those points, you will lose them under cost effectiveness and return on investment. So I really encourage you to ensure that your budgeting is tight and at the end of the day, you're requesting on average around $11,000 per participant. Applicants will be graded using a merit review process and score based on the following criteria. The applicant capacity receives 25% of the points. The documentation of need receives 25% of the points. Project quality and integration, which is the most important part, receives 30% of the points, but also cost effectiveness and return on investments receives 20% of the points. All that added will give you 100% of the points. You can find more details related to the merit review process on section E1 of the NOFO. The department will designate an evaluation committee to grade each application received for these funding opportunities. Grants will be awarded and funding levels will be determined per application based on its alignment with the requirements of this NOFO. Please keep in mind that once your application is graded and scored based on that review, applicants may be selected to enter into negotiations with the goal of arriving at acceptable grant terms, including budgetary and scope of work provisions, at which time the final decision to make a grant award will be made. So that's important. You know, once applications are graded, we enter into negotiations with grantees. If we cannot we cannot agree on the terms, then obviously no grant will be awarded. If we can arrive at terms that we both agree on, then we will proceed to issue a grant. If the anticipated timeline for this grant award changes, we will notify you of all of a new timeline, and that information you can find on page 21 of the NOFO. Any questions before I move on to section F, Dan?
No, there are no questions in the chat.
Okay, section F, award administration information. Under this section, you'll be provided with information regarding the notice of state award, a NOSA, and that's the document that we would issue if we arrive at an agreeable negotiation, an agreeable point, and we decide to move forward. You will receive a NOSA, which is a notice of state award. Here we also deal in this section with administrative and national policy requirements, issues related to COVID, subrecipients, subcontractors, grant uniform requirements, and procurement, among others. This section also deals with reporting, including periodic reports, both programmatic and financial, monitoring, audits, and more importantly, the Illinois Works Reporting System, or IWRS. So let's discuss IWRS for a minute, because if you are successful at getting a grant, this is going to be something that you will need to learn how to use. We will provide training and technical assistance related to it, but it's a key part of the Illinois Works Pre-Apprenticeship Program. Please note that grantees, in addition to submitting the required financial and programmatic reports to the Office of Grant Management, will also be required to report, and I want to emphasize this, real-time program activities using the Illinois Works Reporting System, or IWRS. IWRS is a database designed for Illinois Works Pre-Apprenticeship programs to track all programmatic and participant information. And again, this is reporting that is done real time as part of your grant award. If you want more information about award administration, you can certainly go to page 23 of the NOFO where you will be able to get more information about it. Section G deals with state awarding agency contacts. So the contact information is Norman Ruano, myself, for the Deputy Director of the Office of Illinois Works. You'll be able to find my contact information there on page 25 of the NOFO in case you have any other questions before you apply. Last section of the NOFO is H, other information. The Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity Illinois Works Office reserves the right to request additional information from applicants to evaluate their applications. DCO grant managers may contact applicants to request information with a quick turnaround. Generally, if we contact you, we will give you 48 hours to respond to our request for more information. And this is particularly done whenever we need to get technical or administrative clarifications. There's missing or incomplete components, or there might have been technical transmission errors. We may have something missing, a document is missing or is not legible or things of that nature. Additionally, this section also provides information regarding the Freedom of Information Act and also confidential information, NOFO technical assistance, payment schedule, and the performance-based payment model. So this is a very point here. Illinois Works is a performance-based grant system. Our performance-based payment model is rooted in the belief that grant funding should be based on a grantee's tangible impact on the community they serve. Illinois Works and DCO drive to produce real change has led to the institution of a performance-based payment model in combination with the state's reimbursement models. Metrics are used to dictate the amount of available funds of funds available for reimbursement. Grantees must then submit financial reports for allowable expenses to access their funding. I really encourage you to not only read the NOFO in that model, we also have significant amounts of information about how that model works in our grantee manual, in our 2023 grantee manual, which we already provided information for earlier. But we're also going to be putting out a webinar, the Illinois Works Performance-Based Payment Model webinar that will be taking place next Thursday, August 10th from 9:30 to 11:30 a.m. I encourage you to go to the NOFO landing page and enroll for that webinar. All the details, I'm going to be walking through all the details on how that model works and giving you examples of different organizations so that you can have any questions you may have answered, or you can make any comments that you may have at that point. This section, which is the last section of the NOFO, also discusses renewals and grant modifications. It also talks about technical assistance and professional development, which both items being very important within our network. Grantees must attend technical assistance and training sessions throughout the year with Illinois Works staff. The Illinois Works Pre-Apprenticeship Program offers a robust virtual onboarding professional development series at the beginning of the grant program period, and program administrators and select staff are required to attend. Applicants must also budget for instructors to attend training and certification classes. In addition to ongoing technical assistance and professional development training, grantees will also have the opportunity to garner additional support from a program coach contracted by the Office of Illinois Works. Depending on the grantee and their capacity, coaching may be required. You can find more information related to this on page 25 of the NOFO. Dan, are there any questions related to this content?
No, Norman, there are no questions in the chat.
Okay, great. It's certainly been a pleasure spending some time with you. I will be in the background in case there are any other questions, but I will now hand it over to Christine, who will finish section 6, and then hand it over to Dr. G.S. Suggs to conduct the evaluation of the webinar. So thanks again for joining. It's been a pleasure. We hope to see your applications and hope to work with you in the future.
Thank you, Norman. So we are now going to be jumping into our program requirements. So if you happen to have the NOFO handy, all of this information is going to be on pages 7 through 11 of that NOFO document. And we're spending some time here because this is really the heart and the focus of the NOFO. This is going to walk you through exactly what our merit reviewers are going to be looking for and the requirements of our program overall. So the first step is the overall program design. So in your application, you must detail how you will design, develop, and implement high-quality pre-apprenticeship programs that significantly increase apprenticeship opportunities for underrepresented populations. So just as a reminder, those populations are women, individuals of color, and veterans. You also want to include how you will coordinate and staff for these program activities as well. Next up is staffing. To fully implement the Illinois Works pre-apprenticeship program, successful applicants must outline how the 8 key program areas will be staffed to ensure quality delivery of programs and services, including program administration, outreach and recruitment, intake, wraparound services, which in our program are non-academic needs. So these are things like childcare, transportation, student support services, which are your academic needs. So that could be extra testing time, retaking tests, things like that. Instruction, transition and follow-up, and finally data entry. So this information should be included as part of your application, both in the narrative, but also on attachment number 4, which is the staffing plan. And in that staffing plan, you will also be asked to provide any staff resumes, instructor credentials, partnership agreements, and MOUs. Now, I really want to stress on staffing. When we're talking about staffing, we do not necessarily mean that every single one of these programs has to have one singular person dedicated. These staffing roles can be shared. So most often we see individuals will have someone who's doing their intake and also their wraparound services. Or we may have instructors who are also helping with those academic needs. And that's fine. These staffing areas are just the key areas we need to make sure are either covered by your staff or are covered by a partner agency. So something to really keep in mind there. Next up is our equity-focused program culture. So you must be able to articulate your understanding of how race, ethnicity, and gender impact access to and experience within the construction and building trades apprenticeship programs. So we're looking for you to explain how your pre-apprenticeship model responds to the unique needs of women, individuals of color, and veterans, including in the areas of recruitment, enrollment, completion, partnerships, training, hiring, advancement, retention, and earnings. So applicants should outline strategies of how they plan to foster a shared identity and a welcoming and inclusive environment within their program. Illinois Works was intentionally designed to increase equity and opportunity in capital construction jobs. And its focus on equity goes beyond numeric participant targets and focuses on all aspects of program design and partnerships. So we're really looking for you to cultivate this culture that exemplifies diversity, equity, belonging, inclusion. All of that is what we're looking for you to outline in your narrative. Now, Illinois Works' focus on equity is completed by a comprehensive quartet, including diversity, inclusion, belonging, and equity. Again, those four are extremely important to the foundation of this program. So each of these are embedded in the Illinois Works culture through our core values. So our core values include overcome barriers, empower for resilience and self-sufficiency, impact through outcome, innovate persistently, build a community of collaboration, and maximize differences. So if you want more information about this DIBE model or the core values, please refer to the 2023 Grantee Manual. In section 2, we outline what each of these mean and how we're looking for them to be incorporated in your program. Next, we have partnerships. We've mentioned this a couple times already. Your program must coordinate with partners. So these partners can include local workforce innovation areas, local and regional apprenticeship navigators, construction and building trades, union groups, community colleges, employers, employer associations, other community-based organizations, secondary schools. Any of these are great partners. This is not an exhaustive list by any means, but this program is really designed to ensure that these participants have an array of these different program areas and supports. And so if your program cannot provide all of those, we totally understand. We are looking for you to partner. We're looking for you to build that network because that is the key to success in our program, but also in this community-based organization industry that we all kind of exist in. So those partnerships are going to be really essential. Now, the primary goal for all pre-apprenticeship program graduates is to transition successfully into a DOL registered apprenticeship program. We do look at secondary goals as well. So those may be including, just employment. So general kind of long-term career employment outside of the construction industry, perhaps additional training and education programs. So those are considered secondary goals for our program. Partnerships should be part of your program design, and your application must include your partnerships validated by a memorandum of understanding signed by all partners. So if you want more information about those expectations, about developing those partnerships, I really encourage you to attend our upcoming session on August 15th called Developing Partnerships. We will delve into different types of partnerships and where we've seen partnerships be really successful within our program. Next up is outreach and recruitment. So your program must outline proactive recruiting, outreach, and support strategies that significantly increase the number of underrepresented populations that enroll in and successfully complete your pre-apprenticeship program. Your strategy must acknowledge race and gender disparities in regional construction and building trade occupations. Applicants do not need to serve all populations targeted by this NOFO. I'm going to say that again. Applicants do not need to serve all populations targeted by this NOFO. You can focus on one or more of the underrepresented populations, including women, individuals of color, and veterans. So if your organization really does a lot of work with women, does a lot of work with specifically Black men, a lot of work with veterans, that is fine. We do not expect you to hit all of the populations. You can just strongly serve one of those populations. Applicants must understand and communicate union and non-union DOL registered apprenticeship program requirements to program candidates. Additionally, you are required to create a plan for marketing, outreach, wraparound supports, and accommodations. So next up, we have delivery of other instruction. So your program must provide plans to refer students who do not have the minimum program requirements to educational services in their respective communities, including free literacy, GED, ESL classes, among others. Your plans must include how applicants' barriers to program entrance and success will be assessed. Your plan should include strategies for removing barriers for those underrepresented groups. So this program requirement is really focusing on if you have a participant come to you and they're not eligible for this program, what is your program doing to help remove those barriers so that they can become eligible for this program? Or how are you helping them get into another program that might be a better fit for them? We never want to leave these participants kind of just out in the world without any resources or any connections. So that's what this section is really about. Next up, we have application and intake. Successful applicants will outline a process to review candidates' eligibility for your pre-apprenticeship program, including a pre-screen assessment, an application, an interview, participants' enrollment, wraparound services, support services. So I just want to note here, we, as a program, if you are approved for funding, we do have set pre-screen assessments, application, interview questionnaires, wraparound service assessments, and we also have a commitment agreement that we require all of our grantees to utilize. So we're not looking for you to provide, this is how our application would be set up, these are the questions in it. We have those for you. What we're really looking for here is, what is the structure that you have in place? Do you already have staff who are used to going through this application process, used to going through an interview process, used to enrolling participants? We're looking for an understanding of what is the process you have in place, because that will help us to understand that you have the capacity to go forward and utilize these program requirements as well. Now, just as a note, eligibility criteria for a participant includes the following. They must be at least 18 years of age, unless they are attending one of our approved high school-based pre-apprenticeship programs. They must have a high school diploma or GED, again, unless they are in one of those approved high school-based programs. They must be an Illinois resident, and they must be interested in pursuing a career in construction or the building trades. Now, I'm just going to pause there. Are there any questions, Dan, about what I've covered so far?
No, there are no questions in the chat at this time.
Okay, thanks, Dan. All right, so let's move on to our next column here, program requirements. So the first one are wraparound supports. Your program must provide a plan for assisting pre-apprentice participants with overcoming non-academic barriers to successful program completion. So the list on your screen are the allowable program costs. Now, this is not an exhaustive list, but this is the list that we know right off the bat are most utilized by our participants and have been pre-approved to be allowable as part of this program. So as you can see, these include, childcare, mental health services, transportation, driver's education fees, if there's an emergency bill payment. As part of transportation, it could also be car repairs if they need that, kind of related to your driver's education. Mentorship, financial literacy. So again, this is not an exhaustive list, but we want to understand, what is your plan for helping your participants overcome these non-academic barriers? And what are those non-academic barriers that you see your population dealing with, and how will you help them? So next up, we are going to talk about stipends. So I know that was a question earlier. Someone wanted to kind of delve a little bit deeper into stipends. So let's go ahead and do that now. So your program must provide stipends to pre-apprentice participants. So a stipend is a payment made to a participant for living expenses, but unlike a salary or wages, which are paid to an employee, these are paid to a trainee. So Though the terms stipends and salary are often used interchangeably, the U.S. Department of Labor has specific criteria that must be met to pay a stipend. And that's extremely important because we do pay a stipend, we do not pay a wage, and that is extremely important that all of our applicants are understanding that we do not utilize any sort of wage language. We do not use salary language. We can only approve a stipend. Now, for the grant year beginning January 1st, 2024, our stipend amounts can be up to $14.25 per instructional hour. So again, it can be up to $14.25 per instructional hour. So it does not mean you have to pay that rate. It's just that is the maximum rate that we can have. Now, to receive a stipend, the focus must be on training rather than employment. The training must be predominantly for the benefit of the pre-apprentice and cannot be connected to a job at the end of training. The pre-apprentice also must not displace regular employees. And a stipend is not considered wages, so Social Security or Medicare taxes are not withheld. However, it still counts as taxable income for income tax purposes. So that's a really important aspect, and that's why we differentiate kind of that wage versus stipend, is that for a stipend, those specific taxes are not taken out. As soon as you call it a wage, you're changing that system. So just be very careful. Applicants that are offered and accept an award from the Office of Illinois Works are not to use wage language, make wage equivalencies in any internal or external documentation or conversations regarding the pre-apprenticeship program. Are there any questions about that? I know we had one earlier, so I just want to make sure that answered the question that had come up earlier.
There are no additional questions in the chat, but if someone would like to unmute and if that didn't clarify their stipend question, they're welcome to.
Okay. All right, well, let me know if you do have any other questions. So next up, we have student support services. So your program must provide plans for assisting participants in maximizing their academic success and attaining the required certifications and credentials. Now, allowable program costs for your student support services may include, but are not limited to, tutoring, retesting, makeup sessions, or other educational enrichments. So I just want to pause here for a second and call attention to the difference between wraparound services and student support services. So again, your wraparound services are non-academic. So those are things like childcare, mental health service, transportation, driver's education. Student support services are academic assistance. So tutoring, retesting, maybe additional time for testing, a different environment for testing, things like that. So that's how we differentiate those, non-academic versus academic. Next up, we have learning. So applicants must explain how they will coordinate education and training, necessary support and retention services, and coaching from other partner institutions. So the department is also interested in applicants who will use or are interested in using innovative teaching and learning tools. So this could include online or virtual learning, like alternate reality or virtual reality, immersive training. I know that's something that's growing in the industry. So if you do have that as something you're interested in utilizing, please add that to your narrative. And that's something that the department is definitely interested in looking at. So please mention that if you are going down that path. So next we have curriculum and instruction. So submitted curricula must provide at least 150 hours of instruction. and should not exceed 300 hours of instruction unless pre-approved by Illinois Works. So again, a minimum of 150 hours, a maximum of 300 hours, unless you have a reason that that needs to be more, which you can outline in your narrative. So instruction should have a strong emphasis on hands-on practice in a construction laboratory and at job sites. Your program's curriculum design must be based on the Illinois Works approved curricula, including utilization of Trades Futures Multi-Craft Curriculum, or MC3, the National Center for Construction Education and Research, or NCCER, or an Illinois Community College Board certificate, so ICCB. So one of those must be required. So MC3, NCCER, or ICCB must be provided. We are open to alternate curricula if you would like to submit those, but those are these three are the ones we've approved so far. Applicants should also outline that their participants will get OSHA 10 certification, as well as first aid CPR certification, and then any other applicant or relevant certifications for the construction industry. So we've seen a whole host of other ones, including, forklift. I know we've seen flagger. So those are things you can also add into your curriculum. But the certificates that are required are those construction, so the MC3, NCCR, or ICCB, OSHA 10, and first aid. Those are the big ones that we're looking for. Your curriculum should also include at least 32 hours of employability skills and not to exceed 40. So we're looking for 32 to 40 hours of employability skills. And supplemental shop math. Now, this is not a requirement, but we have done this program for 2 years now. I know our staff members have done it for a lot longer. Shop math is one of the most difficult topics for our participants across the board in any program. So it is highly recommended to add in that supplemental shop math as well. So applicants must submit a proposed curriculum outline, including your hours, your instruction modules that will be offered, the length of your training, and a logistical plan for delivery. All of that is going to be reported on attachment 3, which is your sample curriculum and proposed curriculum form. Next up, we have work-based learning and practicums. So like I said earlier, we emphasize hands-on training in this program. So your program must include opportunities for pre-apprentices to do construction work at job sites while taking instruction or immediately after completing instruction. Job site practicums are generally supervised by program instructors and are coordinated with community-based organizations, contractors, or government entities that give these participants opportunities to put into practice what they learned in the classroom. So again, we're looking to have that outlined in your curriculum, which is attachment 3. Your program should outline existing or planned partnerships for work-based learning and practicum work sites. Successful applicants will provide a minimum of 10 hours of work-based learning. So again, a minimum of 10 hours of work-based learning. We generally will cut that off at about 50 hours. So we are looking for somewhere between 10 and 50 hours of that work-based learning to be part of your curriculum. Now, if there is a technical reason that prevents your organization from providing hands-on learning experiences, we will accept job visits or tours to DOL registered apprenticeship programs. Please put that technical reason and your proposal for how you will help those participants still get some of that experience as part of your narrative. Next up, we have transition and follow-up. So your program must provide plans on how it will assist participants in transitioning to DOL registered apprenticeship programs, including connecting them to employers and unions and these programs in general. So we accept union or non-union DOL registered apprenticeship programs. You want to make sure your participants are connecting with all of them. Also, include plans for referring participants that do not enroll into apprenticeship programs into advanced construction education and training programs or other employment. Additionally, applicants should outline how they will follow up with participants beyond program completion on at least a quarterly basis for a period of 1 year. So I'm going to just pause here because this is extremely important. Everything that we talk about in this program, from your recruitment to your training, all of the supports that you put into your program, the culmination of all of that is this transition. So you really want to make sure to outline how you will develop these partnerships with transition partners. So again, that could be union or non-union registered apprenticeship programs. It could be employers, if they want to go to additional education or training, something specific around construction or building trades and want more training on that. You want to be building these partners now. We always say it's better to kind of build those friendships now before you absolutely need them. And it helps to transition those participants. Now, after they leave, we want to make sure that we know what's happening with them. You want to provide them additional support if they need it, just words of encouragement at times. So that's where that 1 year of follow-up comes in. So please outline how you will develop those relationships for transition, and then how you will do this follow-up for that 1 year after they leave your program. So next we have outcome measures. So the primary goal of the Illinois Works Pre-Apprenticeship Program is to significantly increase apprenticeship opportunities for historically underrepresented populations. Achievement of this goal will be evaluated by DCEO and the Illinois Works Review Panel, which is responsible for reporting on the program annually to the General Assembly. To inform the panel's report, the Illinois Works Jobs Program Act requires pre-apprenticeship program grantees to report certain information about their programs, including the number of individuals who apply to, participate in, and complete the community-based organizations program, broken down by race, gender, age, and veteran status. Your program will be required to outline your plan to collect and track data related to outcome measures by completing attachment 2, participant demographics and outcome summary. Now, once you go through the process and hopefully get funded, all of that data that we are required to report is tracked through our proprietary software, Illinois Works Reporting System. Your program, if awarded, will be required to utilize the Illinois Works Reporting System. We call it IWRS internally. And so that is a reporting platform and workforce program management tool that's used to track grantee performance and progress towards negotiated outcome metrics. Data entry is expected to take place in real time. So real time means as the program is in progress. So that can be on a weekly basis, that can be on a daily basis. But what it does mean is it's not you do the whole program and then wait till the end and try to catch up with all of that data. This data should be put into the system as the program is progressing. All programs should plan to have a dedicated data entry coordinator responsible for data entry and integrity. The data that is entered is used by DCEO to verify compliance reports and to create those required reports for the Illinois Works Review Panel and the Illinois Works General Assembly. More importantly, it allows the Office of Illinois Works to conduct longitudinal evaluations to verify and document the impact of the program on enrollees and the state of Illinois. So now that is the last of our program requirements. But if you want more information about this program, You can find that within our 2023 grantee manual. That link is being shared in the chat right now. That manual will give you a detailed look at our guidance, at our program requirements, everything that we hold our current grantees to is in that manual. So the more that you can kind of look through that, the more you can familiarize yourself with that, the stronger your application will be, because you will be already kind of folding into that guidance that we have. Now, as Norman mentioned earlier, we are going to begin the process of updating that grantee manual, but those general program requirements, so looking at everything that we just went through, those are still going to be in 2024. So that 2023 manual is still going to be extremely relevant to your application this year. So are there any questions about what I just reviewed, or any general questions about what we've reviewed today before I hand it off to Dr. Suggs for our evaluation?
Hi, Christine. There is a question regarding what are typical stipend amounts. So if you could talk about how current grantees have decided whether they should give a maximum stipend or something a little bit lower, if you could share some information on that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really great question. So it really depends on each grantee. We do see there is some regional changes. So, you know, we tend to see that our Chicagoland grantees kind of try to max out their stipend as much as possible. And then that kind of changes in other regions based on kind of that market. But it really is up to your organization. I will say you want to set it at a stage that can be competitive. So it really is meant to help these individuals sustain during this program. And for some of them, that might mean that they need to kind of reduce their hours at work, or they may need to completely stop working, depending how you set up your program. So kind of the higher that you set it, the more that it can really help kind of make sure you're retaining them. But you know, it kind of goes back and forth. That could be a double-edged sword, and you end up kind of pulling people in who just want the stipend. So, you know, it's really just looking at your kind of area, your region, and determining what makes sense for that, for your stipend amount, and what would pull people in and retain them, but not create a system where they're just coming just to get that stipend. It's not an exact science, so I know that that probably wasn't as definitive as you were looking for, but I hope that that answered your question. Any other questions?
There are no other questions in the chat at this time.
Okay, great. And I realized that I actually misspoke. Was not time to go to evaluation yet. I still want to walk through a couple of items with you, our attachments. So Norman kind of went over these earlier, the attachment requirements, but now I want to just delve into them a little bit more, so you know exactly what we're looking for on these. So let's jump in and explore these 4 attachments. So attachment 1 is the proposed work plan. Attachment 2 is the participant demographics and outcome summary. Attachment 3 is the sample curriculum and proposed curriculum. And attachment 4 is the staffing plan. So let's go ahead and start with attachment number 1, which is our proposed work plan. So this attachment gives you the opportunity to communicate your outcome metrics and instruction information. So you will communicate your intentions regarding your recruitment, how many participants you plan to enroll, how many participants will complete your program, how many participants will transition to a primary outcome, so they will transition to a DOL registered apprenticeship program, and then how many participants will go to a secondary outcome, so that is employment, additional training, perhaps starting their own business, things in that realm. Now, the proposed work plan must be included with your NOFO. And just to kind of plug there, if any of these attachments are missing, your application may not be reviewed. So make sure all of these attachments are included. Now, before I jump to the next one, are there any questions about this first attachment?
There are no questions in the chat.
Okay, thank you, Dan. All right, so attachment number 2 is our participant demographics and outcome summary. So this attachment gives you the opportunity to communicate your target participant demographics and your intended outcomes regarding demographics of enrolled participants, service delivery for enrolled participants, program completion, primary transition goals and outcomes, and your secondary transition goals and outcomes. So earlier where you talked about all of the specific demographics that our program has to report to the Illinois General Assembly, all of those are outlined here, and this will give you an opportunity to show us what are your goals broken down by demographics and by your participant outcomes. Again, this document must be included with your notice of funding. Now, attachment number 3 is your sample curriculum and proposed curriculum. So to further assist you, we have provided in this attachment a sample curriculum to demonstrate content expectations and the level of detail we are looking for, along with a curriculum template. So when you look at this document, you will see one that is filled out. That is just a sample. That does not mean that is what you have to offer. It's just giving you an idea of what detail we're looking for. And then you'll also get a blank template where you will fill in your program details. So this attachment gives you the opportunity to communicate your program's objectives, instructional hours, delivery format, prerequisites, what certifications or credentials you'll be offering, program modules, the number of hours, and then the total hours of your curriculum. Again, must be included with your NOFO. All of these attachments must be included. And then our final attachment is the staffing plan. So this attachment gives you the opportunity to communicate your staffing plan regarding the following roles: program administrator, outreach and recruitment coordinator, wraparound service coordinator, instructor, student support service coordinator, transition service coordinator, and data entry coordinator. Now, just as a reminder, these are roles that we are looking to be filled, but it does not necessarily mean that they can only be filled by one person in each of these roles. So you may have people who cover both your outreach and recruitment and your intake, or they cover your wraparound services and student support services. They can share. I will give you a little bit of advice that we have seen some of our most successful applicants and grantees make sure to dedicate one person to their data entry coordinator. So that is the one role I would definitely say you want to make sure has its own dedicated person, because that is going to be extremely important in this program. Now, keep in mind, these do not all have to be internal staff members. These roles can also be filled by partners. We have seen very effective partnerships where they have individuals do their outreach and recruit, or other organizations do their outreach and recruitment for them. Other organizations do their instruction for them. If that is a weak spot in your organization, you can partner with other organizations who have that as a strength. Now, any questions about those 4 attachments? Dan, any questions in the chat?
No, there are no questions in the chat.
Okay, great. All right, so we're going to go ahead and just do a quick review of our funding information for this NOFO. So the total amount of funding that is expected to be awarded through this NOFO is up to $10 million for all of our awards. Awards will range from $55,000 to $550,000, with an average of $11,000 per participant served. So again, you want to take however many individuals you're planning to serve, multiply that by $11,000 per participant, and that should get you an award range that you would be looking for. And again, make sure that it's staying within that cap of $550,000. Now, the department does expect to make up to 20 awards through this NOFO, and the anticipated start date of the award will be January 1st of 2024, and it will run through December 31st of 2024. So I really want to emphasize, this is a 1-year grant. So your programming and your grant agreement will start January 1st and it will end December 31st. So just want to really make sure that your budget and everything that you're planning is for a 1-year span. Now let's touch on the format, submittal, and due date and time. So all documents requested in this NOFO must be submitted. Application materials must be submitted to the department via an electronic Smartsheet format. That link is both in the NOFO itself, and Dan is also going to share it now in the chat for you. Just a reminder, DCO will not open any links such as Google Drive, Dropbox, any other way that you want to share that, OneDrive. These are for security reasons. We cannot click on any links. So if you do send a link and it has all of your documents in it, we will not open it. So just keep that in mind. All of those documents must be submitted through that Smartsheet link. Now the due date and time, the application date range started in July 13th. It will run through August 30th. All applications are due August 30th by 5 p.m. Central Time. So please note the department is under no obligation to review applications that do not comply with the above requirements. So if you submit after that date and time, if you don't submit your attachments, if anything is missing from your application, the department is under no obligation to review your application. So please verify, double check, make sure everything is submitted so we have the opportunity to learn more about your program. Now, as Norman mentioned before, this year we are doing a notice of intent to apply. This is optional, but submitting that will help our team plan for the review process. If you know you are planning to apply, please submit an intent to apply. You can do that through our 2023 NOFO page, and that is due August 9th at 5 p.m. Central. Now, I know Norman touched on this a little earlier, talking about our evaluation criteria, but I just wanted to review again, how will your application be evaluated? So below is how each category will be weighted. So your applicant capacity will be 25%. And I just want to kind of outline to you that the cohorts exclusively filled by Illinois Works participants are preferred, but they're not required. So what that means is if you are running this training program, we're looking for you to run a cohort that is just filled with individuals enrolled in our program. But it is not a requirement. If you want to mix different programs together, just please outline that in your narrative. Cohorts must feature at least 5 participants and not exceed 25 participants. Current grantees seeking to serve a new DCEO region are welcome to propose a larger number of cohorts for the year. However, first-time applicants should limit their cohorts to 3 in the first year. So if this is the first time that you have engaged with this program, please make sure that you are only proposing to serve 3 cohorts, and each of those cohorts can be between 5 to 25 participants. Next up is documentation of need. That is 25% of your merit review score. Then project quality and integration is 30%. And finally, cost effectiveness and return on investment is 20%. So applications will be graded using a merit review process and scored based on this criteria that we've just outlined. The department will designate an evaluation committee to grade applications for funding, and the final score of each committee member will be calculated calculated in an average of all of the scores will be the final applicant score. So applicants may be selected to enter into negotiations with the department, as Norman mentioned earlier, for this grant based on the merit review score. And then we also will take into consideration those geographic and underrepresented population priorities. So we went over those earlier in the session. So those will be factored in as well. Now, I do just want to let you know, in the NOFO, there is a whole section that outlines the merit review process and these application criteria with very specific statements on what goes into each of these criteria. So please take a look at that in the NOFO document. Now, let's just do a brief review of the available resources. Just as a reminder from our earlier section, our NOFO website is the place that you want to be for any of the information for this NOFO. This is where our NOFO resources are. This is where resources for competitive applications are. All of the best practices for pre-apprenticeship and apprenticeship programs, as well as those national best practices for equity, pre-apprenticeship, and apprenticeship programs. So the NOFO provides a summary of these national best practices on page 4. These are extremely valuable resources that can help, again, to really strengthen your application. In the NOFO, starting on page 26, you will also find the following references and resources. So you'll see the acronyms that are used throughout the NOFO, definitions that are directly from the Illinois Works Program Act. So things like defining what a community-based organization is. NOFO references, again, those resources for competitive applications, and those best practices for the apprenticeship programs, pre-apprenticeship programs, as well as those equity best practices. Now, given the comprehensive expectations of the Illinois Works Pre-Apprenticeship NOFO, it is likely that your program may be able to directly deliver or address all program requirements, may not be able to, and that's okay. This type of comprehensive approach to workforce development may require you to partner with other organizations and institutions. That is 100% expected. So these kind of resources combined will help you strengthen your application. So again, I want to encourage you, if you are able to attend that developing partnerships training on August 15th, to join that. You can also watch the recording if you cannot join live. If you did not have an opportunity to attend our Introduction to Illinois Works and its programs, that recording is available on our site for download, as is the GATA session that took place on August 1st. We do have the upcoming Illinois Works performance-based payment model session next Thursday that will give you an in-depth view of that process. And then again, our final one is that developing partnerships training on the 15th. You can access all of those registration links, all of those recordings on our 2023 NOFO website. Dan is going to put that link in the chat for you just one more time in case you missed it. And keep in mind, again, it does kind of take 3 to 5 business days to get these webinars up. So if you don't see it immediately, know that it is on its way and we will get it up as soon as possible. And now I'm going to ask if there are any questions in the chat. Anyone, feel free to unmute your line.
We do have a question in the chat, circling back to the evaluation criteria and
Yes.
applicant capacity. Is for new applicants, is that a minimum of 3 cohorts per year or a maximum?
It is a maximum of 3 cohorts per year. Great question. Yeah, so we are only, for new applicants, only 3 cohorts per year. You can do less, you don't have to do 3. So it is a maximum of 3. Any other questions? All right, I'm not seeing any more.
A question just appeared.
Great.
Regarding funding, do you receive 25% upfront and then monthly reimbursement or funding through the year?
So great question. So first I will give you a plug to attend our payment model session on August 10th. We are going to do a deep dive into how that system works. However, we do not give 25% upfront. You do have the ability as a new grantee or as a new applicant to request a capital advance. So you can request a certain portion of your grant upfront, but we do not automatically give a set amount upfront. So that's a really great question. Please attend that session or watch that session if you can't attend live, because we will walk through that payment model step by step and answer all of those questions. Any other questions? Okay. Dan, anything else?
No other questions in the chat, no.
All right, awesome. All right, so now I am actually going to hand it to Dr. Suggs. I jumped a little, I was too eager. I love talking with her, so I was too eager to get to her. But now I actually am going to hand it off to Dr. Suggs for our evaluation. Thank you all so much for attending. It has been a pleasure to present to you.
Thank you, Christine, so much. And we are going to just do a really quick evaluation. So if you have logged out of Mentimeter, please just take one quick second and log back in for us. That's www.menti.com, and the code is 4304-8485. And Dan has also put the direct link back into the chat, so you can just click on that link and it will allow you to go into Mentimeter. And we just have a few questions for you. Well, let's see if we can get back to Mentimeter here. Oh, did we lose it? We might have. Give me 1 second. I can get us right back in. Okay. Of course, want to make sure the code is still the same, 4304-8485. Let me double check. Awesome. Yes. Okay. Oh, it's saying I'm currently in. Give me 1 second. I apologize here. Okay, I am unsure why Mentimeter is being a little temperamental here. It's saying that I'm already in, but I don't see it. So what we will do is send you a link after this session. And if you all could please take a moment and complete the evaluation for us. The feedback is important. We really use this information to help improve the quality of the next session. So please be on the lookout for a communication. It'll be from Christine, and it'll be a link to the evaluation. And thank you all so much for attending.